Welcome to the What If It's Not Depression podcast. I'm your host, Dr. Achina Stein, and today I am interviewing Dr. Debi Silber. She is going to talk today about betrayal. And I've been so excited about having her here because I always say never make any decisions if you have guilt, shame, fear, or anger. Never make decisions driven by those specific emotions. And I have to say that betrayal is one of those emotions that I would add to that list. And I did not come up with it, but Dr. Debi Silber did. She is the founder of the Betrayal Transformation Institute, PBT Institute, and is a holistic psychologist, a health mindset and personal development expert, the author of Trust Again, and is a two-time #1 international best-selling author of the Unshakable Women and From Hardened to Healed. Her podcast, From Betrayal to Breakthrough, is also globally ranked within the top 1.5% of podcasts. Her recent PhD study on how we experience betrayal made 3 groundbreaking discoveries that changes how long it takes to heal. In addition to being on Fox, CBS, the Dr. Oz Show, TEDx, twice now, and more, she's an award-winning speaker and coach dedicated to helping people move past their betrayals, as well as any other blocks preventing them from the health, work, relationships, confidence, and happiness they want most. Welcome, Dr. Debi Silber, founder and CEO of the PBT Transformation Institute.
Thank you so much. Looking forward to our conversation.
Yeah, I'm so excited. And I would love for you to start, like I have everyone start, by talking about how you even got into this topic. I know you wrote that it chose me, that the topic chose you. So there must be some kind of experience that happened that resulted in you really researching this and writing about it and talking about it. Now it's, your life's mission, right?
Yeah. I don't think anybody says, oh, betrayal, I think I want to study that. No, you study because you have to. And it's actually my 30th year in business, health, mindset, personal development. And as life would change, well, so would business. And I had a really painful betrayal from my family and thought I did everything I needed to do to heal. And a few years later, it happened again. This time it was my husband. Anybody who's been through it, you're shocked, blindsided, devastated. Life as you've known it is no longer. So that was the deal breaker. Got him out of the house. And I looked at the two experiences thinking, well, what's similar to these two? Of course, me, but what else? And I realized, boundaries were always getting crossed. I never took my needs seriously. And I'm one of those believers that if nothing changes, nothing changes. So here I was, 4 kids, 6 dogs, and a thriving business. And I said, that's it. I'm going back for a PhD. And I didn't know how I was going to pay for it. I didn't know how I was going to manage the time, but I knew like a book wasn't getting me out of this. I needed a whole PhD in it. And it was in transpersonal psychology, the psychology of transformation and human potential, because I was changing so much, I didn't quite understand what was happening. He was too, wasn't ready to look at that. And then it was time to do a study. So I studied betrayal. What holds us back? What helps us heal? And what happens to us physically, mentally, and emotionally when the people closest to us lie, cheat, and deceive? That study led to 3 groundbreaking discoveries, which changed my health, my work, my family, my life.
Wow, that's amazing. That is truly amazing. And it's changed everyone that you've worked with, their lives as well. Yeah, so let's dive into that more. So tell us more about how betrayal is a different type of crisis, like that requires a different way of healing, because it seems like, you would just do the same old thing. But I feel like you have really nailed it in terms of it being really treated in a different way.
It needs to be. And that was actually the first discovery. Originally, I was studying betrayal and post-traumatic growth. And for those who aren't familiar, I kind of look at post-traumatic growth as kind of the upside of trauma, how that trauma, that crisis, death of a loved one, disease, natural disaster, whatever it is, leaves you with a new awareness, insight, perspective that you didn't have. But I'd been through death of a loved one and I'd been through disease. And I was like, no, betrayal feels so different. But I didn't want to assume it was the same for all my study participants. So I asked them, if you've been through other traumas, other crises, does betrayal feel different for you? Hands down, unanimously, they said, oh my gosh, it's so different. And here's why. Because it feels so intentional. We take it so personally. So the whole self is shattered and has to be rebuilt. Think about it. Rejection, abandonment, belonging, confidence, worthiness, trust, they all have to be rebuilt. So it didn't quite qualify as post-traumatic growth. It's like, yes, you need to rebuild your life, but you also need to rebuild yourself. So I coined a new term, post-betrayal transformation, which is the complete and total rebuild of your life and yourself after an experience with betrayal. Because think about it, like, let's say you lose someone you love. You grieve, you're sad, you mourn the lost, life will never be the same, but you don't lose your ability to trust. You don't feel maybe a sense of rejection, right? So it's that intent, the feeling that it's so intentional is what makes betrayal so different. That was the first discovery.
There are situations though, where I've seen where people have been enmeshed with another person, and if they die, right? And it's not so much, like a parent, a child, or even an adult child, and or how couples are enmeshed with each other. So they lose a part of themselves if they die. So it's a different kind of grief process.
Absolutely.
Yeah, I would say maybe closer to betrayal, but maybe not. I don't know. I would love to hear what you think about that. Yeah. But
and there is an important element of grieving with betrayal. You're grieving the loss of that relationship, grieving what you wanted and didn't get. There is a very specific place actually where grieving launches us to the next part of healing.
Yeah. So what we probably should have started with was, what is your definition of betrayal? Because you've talked a lot about it and how it's different from something else. But yeah, maybe we should have started with what is actually betrayal.
That's okay. Yeah. So I define it as the breaking of a spoken or unspoken rule, and every relationship has them. And the way it works is the more we trust and the more we depend on someone, the deeper the betrayal. So for example, a child who's totally dependent on their parent and totally trust that parent, and then the parent does something awful, that's going to have a different impact than, let's say, your best friend sharing your secret. Still a betrayal, different level of cleanup left in the wake. It's without our awareness or consent, someone chose to break that spoken or unspoken rule.
Wow. So that tends to be in intimate relationships, or families, like you said, right?
Oh, sure. And I mean, it could be with friends, coworkers. We could feel betrayed by betrayal of expectations in the times we're in now. We could feel betrayed by a company. I remember when I was doing my research, there was something that was called the love turns to hate principle. And you can love a product. Let's say there's a product and you're told from that product, that company, that it's good for you. And then you find out it's not. We would rather buy a product we know is not good for us than buy a product we're told is good for us and we find out it isn't. We turn on a company like that so quickly, where we love it and then we're furious. We don't like being duped. We don't like it.
Right. So it's interesting I wonder how people, because you said unspoken rule, right? So how do people arrive at these rules in the first place?
Yeah.
And the betrayal is almost, the way I would think about it is that you're putting it on the other person to know the rule, right?
And that's why it's sort of like an understanding over time. Like, let's say in a marriage, the understanding, unless it's specifically said that it's not the case, the understanding is you'd both be faithful. Right. The understanding is, let's say with friends, you have each other's back, whatever the understanding is. So maybe you didn't have an outward discussion about it, but that's the unspoken rule.
Right.
And of course, listen, one can have one definition of what it means to have someone's back. And someone has a different definition, but it really is, it's that shock of, I was abiding by those rules, spoken or unspoken, that we agreed to. And then all of a sudden we find out the other person isn't.
Right. So I wonder if a betrayal also is talking about the rules, changing the rules. And even if that can be considered betrayal, it's like, why are you even asking? Like, that's not even,
Well,
that could be.
Right. And at least that's open discussion. I mean, because as maybe the relationship changes, maybe the rules change. Like maybe the rule is, when mom and dad get older, siblings, when mom and dad get older, we'll support them. And then that was the agreement. And then let's say one of the siblings has no money. The rules may need to be redefined. And then it's okay, well, then you take care of them just by being there and I'll pay, whatever,
Right.
as long as it's discussed. Yeah. So that first discovery was really about how different betrayal is. And because it's so different, it needs a very different protocol to heal from it.
Right, right. Yeah, no, I'm just bringing these possibilities out
Mhm. Oh,
as
yeah.
how you can possibly think about it, because there's so many layers, I'm
Mhm.
sure. And it's just looking at it from all the angles, I think is helpful for people. So you have 5 stages that you say that we'll go through if we fully heal from betrayal. Can you talk about that?
I'd love to. I'd love to get to the second discovery first. That was
Oh,
really the third one. Yeah, because
okay.
then it'll just make the third one just bring it all together. So the second discovery was that there's actually a collection of symptoms, physical, mental, and emotional, so common to betrayal, it's now known as post-betrayal syndrome.
Excellent.
And we've had 70,000 plus people take our post-betrayal syndrome quiz on our site to see to what extent they're struggling. Now, a few things about that. The first thing is we've all been taught time heals all wounds. Well, I have the proof when it comes to betrayal. That's not true.
Mm.
There's a question on the quiz that says, is there anything else you'd like to share? And people write things like, my betrayal happened 40 years ago. I could still feel the hate. My betrayal happened 35 years ago. I'm unwilling to trust. So we know we cannot count on time to heal it. We can't count on a new relationship to heal it either. And in fact, I can spot an unhealed betrayal a mile away. I'm happy to share what that looks like. But every so often, I pull the stats from the quiz to see where people land. And these are men, women, every age group is represented, just about every country. You want me to share some of the statistics?
Absolutely.
Okay, so now imagine out of 70,000 plus people, 78% constantly revisit their experience. 81% feel a loss of personal power. 80% are hypervigilant. 94% deal with painful triggers, and those triggers can take you right down.
Oh,
The most common physical symptoms, 71% have low energy, 68% have sleep issues, 63% have extreme fatigue, your adrenals have tanked.
mm,
47% have weight changes. Maybe in the beginning, you can't hold food down. Later on, you're using food for comfort. 45% have digestive issues, and that's anything from Crohn's, IBS, diverticulitis, constipation, diarrhea. The most common mental symptoms, 78% are overwhelmed, 70% are walking around in a state of disbelief, 68% are unable to focus, 64% are in shock, 62% can't concentrate. Now, you still have to raise your kids, go to work. So imagine here, you can't concentrate, you have a gut issue, you're exhausted, right? That's not even the emotional issues. Emotionally, 88% experience extreme sadness, 83% are really angry, very common to bounce back and forth between those two emotions.
wow.
82% feel hurt, 80% have anxiety, 79% are stressed, just a few more. This is why I wrote the book Trust. 84% have an inability to trust. 67% prevent themselves from forming deep relationships because they're afraid of being hurt again. 82% find it hard to move forward. 90% want to move forward, but they don't know how. Now, you know
Mm,
what's the craziest thing about all those stats? First of all, you didn't hear me say one thing that was like 20%, 30%. These numbers were high. And this isn't from something that happened recently. This could be from something that happened decades ago, from
wow.
something your parent did, from something from the girlfriend or boyfriend in high school. So now think about this. That person may not even know, care, or even remember. And here we are walking around with anxiety or gut issues, or we're hyper vigilant because of something from decades ago. That's not fair to us.
Oh, wow. Wow. So, and it could be building and triggering event after event. And so you're more sensitive to it. So when it happens again, it just puts you into a deeper place,
Not
right?
only are we more sensitive to it, we keep finding ourselves in these repeat betrayals. And a repeat betrayal, by the way, is a classic sign of an unhealed betrayal.
Wow.
The faces change, but it's the same thing. We keep going from partner to partner to partner, friend to friend to friend, boss to boss to boss. We say, what the heck, is it me? Yes, it is. Not in that it's your fault, in
Right.
that it's your opportunity. There's a profound lesson waiting to be learned you are lovable, worthy, deserving. You need better boundaries in place, whatever it is. Until and unless you get that, you'll have opportunities in the form of people to teach you. Like, look at my own story. First of all, here it was my family. And let me close the loop on my story here. Rebuilding is always a choice, whether you rebuild yourself and move on, or you rebuild something from the ground up new with the person who hurt you. And that's what I did with my husband, as two totally transformed people. Not long ago, we married each other again. New rings, new vows, new dress, and our 4 kids is our bridal party. But here's the thing. Now look what I did. It was my family, and then it was my husband, and I made, for me, such a drastic move, which was to go back for this PhD. I had never done anything as scary as that, as big as that for me, right? But it changed my life. So the lesson was learned. I never took my own needs seriously.
Right.
And then when I did, it changed everything.
Right.
So those repeat betrayals, classic sign that there's work to do.
Absolutely. Yes. And so can you talk more about the work to do? So how is that work different from these other things that people work on and not get anywhere, right? And I don't even know what to call these other things, but
yeah. And I'd love to get to the third discovery, but to answer your question, like, think about it. Someone can have 45% of everybody who's been betrayed has a gut issue. So now think about it. You can go to the best gut doctor on the planet. But if they don't understand, I mean, this is why we started our certification program. If they don't understand what betrayal does, they're only getting to a certain level, because that gut issue is largely, because of, and has, it has a lot to do with that betrayal. So we need to heal it at the roots instead of getting just, masking or taking care of the symptoms. So when we do, a lot of the things that show up because of it heal. As someone moves through the 5 stages from betrayal to breakthrough, which that's the one I'm going to share next, these symptoms just heal because they're getting to the root of it. And that was the third discovery.
Right. So the thing is, what's interesting is that the energy centers, the chakras, are of connection, right? And having a foundation within yourself are in those lower areas, specifically the solar plexus and the sacral chakra. It's all about, and in the root, it's all trust, right? Foundation, trust, connections with people you love. Yeah. It's all in
the heart, and our ability to speak up, the throat chakra. So absolutely. Yeah. But you can heal from all of it. And that's what the third discovery, for me, this was the most exciting. And what we learned was, while we can stay stuck for years, decades, a lifetime, and so many people do, if we're going to fully heal, and by fully heal, I mean symptoms of post-betrayal syndrome to that whole healed, rebuilt place of post-betrayal transformation, we're going to go through 5 now proven predictable stages. And what's even more exciting about that is, we know what happens physically, mentally, emotionally at every stage, and we know what it takes to move from one stage to the next. Healing is entirely predictable.
Wow, that's awesome.
I'm happy to share the 5 stages if you want to hear them.
Absolutely. Yes, of course. We're waiting with bated breath.
Okay, because it would be really awkward if you said no. Okay. Okay, so they're all mapped out in trust again. It's what our coaches are all certified in. It's what we teach within the Institute, but I'm going to give you sort of a boiled down version. So stage 1, this is before it happens. This is like a setup stage. And if you can imagine 4 legs of a table, the 4 legs being physical, mental, emotional, and spiritual. What I saw with everybody, me too, was this real heavy lean on the physical and the mental, thinking and doing, and kind of ignoring and neglecting the emotional and the spiritual, feeling and being. But picture a table with only 2 legs, easy for that table to topple over. Well, that's us. Stage 2, shock, trauma, D-Day, discovery day, the scariest of all of the stages. And this is the breakdown of the body, the mind, and the worldview. Right here, you've ignited the stress response. You're headed for every single stress-related symptom, illness, condition, disease. Your mind is in a complete state of chaos and overwhelm. You cannot wrap your mind around what you just learned. This makes no sense. And your worldview has just been shattered. Your worldview is your mental model. the rules that govern you, that prevent chaos. Don't go here, trust this person. And in one earth-shattering moment or series of moments, every rule, that you've held to be real and true is no longer. The bottom is bottomed out and a new bottom hasn't been formed yet. So this is terrifying.
Right.
But think about it. If the bottom were to bottom out on you, what would you do? You'd grab hold of anything you could to stay safe and stay alive. And that's stage 3. Survival instincts emerge. It's the most practical out of all of the stages. If you can't help me, get out of my way. How do I survive this experience? Where do I go? Who can I trust? How do I feed my kids? Here's the trap though. Stage 3, by far, is the most common place to get stuck. And here's why. Once you've figured out how to survive your experience, because it feels so much better than the shock and trauma of where you just came from, we're like, whew, okay, I got this. And because we don't know there's anywhere else to go, we don't know there's a stage 4 or 5, transformation doesn't even begin until stage 4. But because we don't know there's anywhere else to go, we start planting roots here. We're not supposed to, but we don't know that. And 4 things happen. The first thing is we start getting all these small self benefits. You get to be right. You get your story. You get someone to blame. You get a target for your anger. You get sympathy from everyone you tell your story to. You don't have to do the hard work of learning to trust again. Can I trust you? Should I trust you? Forget it. I'm not trusting anybody. So you plant deeper roots. You're not supposed to, but you don't know that. And now that you're here longer than you should be, the mind starts doing things like, well, maybe you deserved it. Maybe you're not all that great. Maybe this, maybe that. So you plant deeper roots. And now because these are the thoughts you're thinking, well, this is the energy you're putting out. And like energy attracts like energy. So now you're calling situations and circumstances and relationships towards it to confirm, yep, this is where you belong. The misery loves company crowd, they come around now too, right? It gets worse, but I'll get you out of here. Because it feels so bad, but you don't know there's anywhere else to go. You're like, I got to get through my day, right? And you're miserable, but you resign yourself. You're like, this stinks, but I have to figure out a way to get through this. So here's where you start using food, drugs, alcohol, work, TV, whatever it is, to numb, avoid, and distract yourself from what's so painful to feel or face. So think about it. You do it for a day, a week, a month, now it's a habit, a year, 10 years, 20 years. And I can honestly see someone 20 years out and say, that emotional eating you're doing, that numbing in front of the TV, that drinking, do you think that has anything to do with your betrayal? And they would look at me like I'm crazy. You said it happened 20 years ago. But do you see? All they did was put themselves in stage 3 and stay there. That makes sense?
Right. Absolutely. Makes 100%. Yeah. And that's probably why they're unable to, give up the alcohol and give up the eating disorder, because those emotions start creeping up and it's like, whoa, this doesn't feel good. So I'm going to keep drinking and keep eating. Right. Yeah.
Exactly. And I found it so crazy. So trust again maps out all 5 stages. So from hardened to healed is just for stage 3. I'm like, you bothered going through that trauma. You owe it to yourself to move all the way through. Right. So anyway, if you're willingness is a huge word right here, to let go of your small self benefits, grieve, mourn the loss, bunch of things you need to do. You move to stage 4. Stage 4 is finding and adjusting to a new normal. So here's where you acknowledge, I can't undo what happened, but I control what I do with it. Right there in that decision, you start turning down the stress response. You're not healing just yet, but at least you stop the massive damage you'd been creating in stages 2 and stage 3. And stage 4 feels like if you've ever moved to a new house, office, condo, apartment, whatever, all your stuff's not there. It's not quite cozy yet, but it's going to be okay. That's the feeling of stage 4. But what I found so interesting to stage 4 is, think about it. If you were to move, you don't bring everything with you. You don't bring the things that don't represent who you want to be when you're in that new space.
Right.
And what I found was, if your friends weren't there for you, you don't bring them with you from stage 3 to stage 4. Right here, you've outgrown them. And people say to me all the time, what the heck? I've had these friends 10, 20, 30 years. Is it me? Yes, it is. You're undergoing a transformation. And if they don't rise, they don't come. So if you feel all of a sudden like, it's so weird, I'm with my friends, but like, it's not working anymore. That's why. Anyway, when you've made stage 4 cozy, you've made it home, you move into the 5th most beautiful stage. And this is healing, rebirth, and a new worldview. The body starts to heal, self-love, self-care, eating well, exercise. things like that. You didn't have the bandwidth for that earlier. Now you do. Your mind is healing. You're making new rules. You're making new boundaries based on the road you just traveled. And you have a new worldview based on what you see so clearly now. And remember the 4 legs of the table in the beginning? It was all about the physical and the mental. By this point, we're so solidly grounded because we're focused on the emotional and the spiritual too. Those are the 5 stages.
Excellent. That's a beautiful, and I love the way you described it, stage per stage, and what to expect for each of those stages. And sounds like stage 3, you're kind of stuck in fight flight. The amygdala is constantly firing, right?
Exactly.
And
And the longer you're there, the harder it is to leave because you get so many benefits. They seem like benefits.
right.
You get that story, but when you realize what a better story you get when you let that go, like think about it, in my own experience, the most important people in my life all betrayed me.
Right.
And if I told you that story, you'd give me a lot of sympathy, right? But look at the story now. We're helping thousands of people because I have a different story.
Right.
So it's like even with we have this suppressed immune system when we hang on to, but when we heal, it's that, we stop that accelerated aging. We boost our immune system. So many benefits when we let go.
And you become resilient.
Oh, yeah.
And live longer and happier.
Happier.
Absolutely. Yeah, it's all connected. I love the way you described everything. And I'm so excited for you and your new book and everything that you're doing for everyone. You're really creating great changes in people's lives. And I'm hoping that people really get something out of this interview because you've really laid it out so nicely. And like I said, I'm sure there's plenty of people out there that have betrayal and don't even realize how much it impacts them. And hopefully by listening to this episode, they'll think about it. It's like, and I know you have a quiz that I can send people to. Do you have post-betrayal syndrome on your website? So that's a great way for people to get to know you and figure out if this is something that's impacting them. So I will send them to your website, and you have Instagram and Facebook as well. If people are interested in getting to know you and even work with you at some point, I'm sure there's people out there that are going to benefit from this episode and get to know you better. Thank you so much for everything that you've done. And we'll have some pop-ups of your book at the beginning of the episode.
Thank you so much.
Oh, and if anyone likes this episode, please click and subscribe to What If It's Not Depression podcast. I keep forgetting to say that in the beginning. So I will now say it at the end. And if you're interested in learning more about me and my boot camp, you can go to www.achinasteindio.com. Okay, thank you.